Well, the U.S. Congress might not be able to agree on just about anything these days, but Canada's newly elected Parti Quebecois sure seems to be getting the ball rolling. The party has canceled university tuition fee hikes, repealed laws to restrict public demonstrations, closed Quebec's only nuclear power plant, put shale gas development in the province on hold, and pledged to reimburse a $200 health tax on residents last year. That was just day one of the Parliament session. And the most astounding part of this is that this 180-degree turn is that the party is still building coalitions with other parties in order to pass these legislations. Now, to remind you what the PQ party is, it rose to power amid the extreme crackdown on student protesters. The long-standing Liberal Party had been in control of Quebec for nearly a decade before this election, and now the province's first ever premier, Pauline Marois, has taken the reins. So is this the first day of Parliament? Is it a sign of things to come? Joining me now to discuss this, Jacob Reams, an assistant professor for SUNY Empire State College. Hi there, Jacob. So what's going on here?
Well, what we're seeing is the end of an era, the end of the Charest era, the Liberal Party, as you said. He'd been in office for almost 10 years, and one of the things in the parliamentary system is that when you get a new government, you get a total shift in what goes on. So the PQ had made various promises to elements of its coalition during the campaign, and now we're seeing them make good on those promises.
So, Jacob, let me ask you this. Is this a sign of things to come? Like I said, is this normal in Canada to have so many things passed when power shifts to another party?
Yeah, well, one thing to remember is a difference between things actually passing immediately and announcements. So the shale gas, for instance, was an announcement of a moratorium, and there'll be a report and a study to decide what the permanent thing will be. The tuition increase rollback was something that could be done by the premier immediately. So it's a combination of sort of constitutional questions and how things are arranged about how things are going to vote. But absolutely, one of the benefits or the curses, depending on the way you think of it, of a parliamentary system is that you don't have a president or a governor make proposals and then have it debated in Congress or the legislature in the same way that happens in this country.
Now, I also know that Premier Marois said she wasn't decreasing funding to universities during this time. So where is all this funding coming from? I mean, they're avoiding tuition hikes, they're rebating the health tax, and cutting back on shale gas development and closing the nuclear plant. So, I mean, is this province going to go bankrupt in a year at this rate?
I suppose that's a good question. The nuclear plant question is actually they are saving money on that. The nuclear plant is aging. It needed a lot of renovation, and actually shutting it down entirely is going to save the province a fair amount of money. The $200 tax for health care is going to be made up for, Marois said, by raising taxes on the rich. And as for tuition and the bursaries, the financial aid, people don't actually know yet. This is absolutely a critical victory for the student movement, for the strike, and for the student leaders and unionists. But it's not a complete victory. No one actually knows what's going to happen. There needs to be a lot of discussion in the province about where money is going to come from. A lot of that is going to be about reform of the university, and some of it's going to be about taxes. Absolutely.
So should these legislations be passed unless you know where the money is coming from, or is this a little bit hasty on their part?
Well, so again, it has to do with the way the money is. And so the legislation that was going to have the tuition increase is legislation that was it hadn't quite happened yet, and so it's not that this is a new thing. It's just going back to the status quo. But you look at the way Quebec universities are, the University of Quebec, and there's been a lot of, I don't want to say waste, but a lot of different priorities in spending money on things like development as opposed to things like students or faculty. And so one of the things that this is going to have to do is really create a sense of reprioritizing what universities are going to do. The university where I used to be associated, Concordia University, in the last 5 years, I think, went through 3 presidents, and each time one was forced out, they would give that person a $200,000 or $300,000 golden parachute. Not actually a useful way of spending money if you think you're actually short of money.
And Jacob, from what I understand, they're not even trying to increase the rates concurrent with the economy. Is that correct?
Well, again, this is somewhat up in the air. Macron has said that an inflation increase could be possible. Students are actually going back onto the streets on the 22nd. There's going to be another march for free tuition. This is actually one of the things that the student movement was demanding, was not simply a rollback of the increases that were announced, but actually free tuition. A real sense that education should be something like healthcare, like in Quebec, childcare, like housing, that should be provided by the nation or by the state for the benefit of the nation. And it's not simply a private good or something that should be an investment, or the way it is in the United States, a luxury good. There's a real ideological sense, a real commitment to it being a social good and a social benefit.
And we know that the student movement seemed to have paralyzed the Liberal Party and boosted the PQ party into power, among other things. Is this an example of protest movements making their way to Parliament, or is it bigger than that?
I think it is bigger than that. The campaign that we saw in August had a lot of different things. It had a lot to do about nationalism and language and religion. It also had a lot to do with corruption. There was a tremendous amount of corruption in the Liberal Party, and we'll see. There's a commission going on right now, the Charbonneau Commission, and we'll see where that ends up. But absolutely, this is the power of the streets. This is people. This is Macron. This is the PQ saying to part of their coalition, which included the students, this is part of what we stand for. We stand for Quebec that has tuition that everyone can afford, that has higher education as part of the rights of citizenship.
And we know that Premier Macron is going to be meeting with Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper next month. We're going to have to wait to see what comes out of that. But until then, thank you so much for weighing in. That was Jacob Reams, assistant professor with SUNY Empire State College. Thank you so much for joining me, Jacob.
My pleasure. Take care.